Well, good morning, everyone. I hope you're having a great day. I like that winter is behind us very much. Can we have the sermon title slide up? I am about the next one. That's the series title. There we go. Some of you aren't going to like the next minute and a half. Now, I have to first tell you a joke. No, put that one back up there. We're not done with that yet. I have to first tell you the joke that Joanna Smith told me. Now, Joanna Smith is genuinely a very, very funny person, but not this joke. What kind of car did Jesus drive? A Chrysler. I know. We're going to have her review upcoming shortly, and we'll take care of that. Far better joke. What car did Paul drive? There you go. You've been to church before. I know you. If you look in the book of Philippians, in the King James Version, and if you don't know what that is, that's old-timey English. That's like Shakespearean English. There's lots of words we don't use anymore, and there's words that used to mean this, and now they mean that, and so we don't use it all that often. But for the sake of a bad joke, it serves us today. And King James Version, Philippians chapter 2, starting in verse 2. Therefore, if there is any consolation in Christ, if any comfort of love, if any fellowship of the Spirit, if any affection and mercy, fulfill my joy by being like-minded and having the same love, being in one accord. Thanks for coming to church, everyone. We'll see you next week. I think those are the only two bad jokes in this sermon. I think. You'll have to come up and tell me afterwards. But what is being said in that, let me continue, be in one accord, of one mind. Let nothing be done through selfish ambition or conceit, but in lowness of mind, let's esteem each other better than himself. Let each of you look out not only for your own interests, but also in the interests of others. When I was a kid, we used to say, one for all and all for one. And now we say, all for me and none for you. There's been a change that's happened, and it's happened so rapidly that it's kind of shocking to me. But it sure has happened. But it's not unexpected. When we are born, we're born into a world where we began to demand other people to fulfill our needs. I've got 3 children, and none of them are little anymore. But I look over, and we have some very little people here today. And I sometimes look as they're holding sleeping baby with a clean diaper and smelling all good. And I remember those days, and I long for those days. And then my kid walks out with his friends and climbs into a car and they drive away, and I like that too. I like the independence of that. But I sometimes remember those quiet moments where life was real busy, and then a baby said, actually, no, you're going to stay home today. And all of the things that absolutely have to be done, they're not going to be done. Oh man, there were some nice moments in there. And I know that is not everyone's story, and if that was not your story, I want to be sensitive to that. But I liked those moments. But it was a long time before Mandy and I went through a night without being interrupted. And certainly more difficult for her in the nursing time of our life, and I would wake up and go back to sleep, and she would wake up and have to feed a baby, and then eventually that was no longer happening, and we would take turns getting up and changing a baby and all of these things. That baby grew, and then we got to sleep through the night. I do like sleeping through a night. My wife's not here right now. She is with one of our babies. They are out playing at an honor band. And so we still sometimes have other people sort of dominate the schedule. That happens a lot to us. And we think that when we grow up a bit, we grow out of that until someone else gets all the attention. Now that's rough. Think about when you get a nice shirt, a nice new shirt, and someone else gets a nice new shirt, and everybody notices their new shirt. Or perhaps a new haircut, looking fresh, Mr. Miller. Looking good over there. But what if someone else got a haircut, and I didn't call you out, Harrison Hall, with your nice new haircut? But there might be a third person in here with a haircut, and genuinely, I don't know. I don't see anyone else. Maybe Mike back there. Might be you. I don't know. Scott, you're looking scruffy. Like you need a haircut. Yeah, I see you back there. We want that attention. In a world of social media, this one doesn't touch me. But the idea of having likes on your posts, it is so important to some people. I don't even know if I've got them. I don't know what I would do with them if I did have them. But for some people, this is such a drive in their life, and we like that attention. Maybe you're at work, and there's a promotion, but it's not you. Or there's a demotion, and it is you. Maybe the person who is lower on the corporate ladder sort of jumps over the rung that you're on, and they're noticed for something, and you think, hey, wait a minute. I'm supposed to be that person. It might be stuff. I went to they had an RV show in the exhibition grounds when they were in winter. Who went to that? Anybody go to that? Oh man. Wow. I don't even want an RV, and I wanted all those RVs. There are some RVs in there, this is not a joke, they're nicer than my house. I mean, and some of them were about the same size. Like they were just huge. My brother-in-law sells RVs, and the really expensive trailers, the big ones, you have to have them delivered in a semi, or on a semi. And they say, you can buy this trailer, but once the trailer is where it is, you never move it again. It's not really a trailer, it's just a house on wheels. And they're just gorgeous. I mean, the furniture that comes with them is nicer than the furniture that I own. And it's not hard for me to sit there and go, must be nice. My neighbor has a boat. That boat it's been 2 years. That boat has never left the driving way. It's sitting on a trailer. I do not own any property near water anywhere. And I wish that boat was in my parking lot, sinking into the ground. And boy, I tell you, what I really need is another project in my driveway. Like, I need that bad, real bad. But we get that stuff thing. It's weird how Chris has new shoes today, right now. He'll be back up later. You can look at them then. They're sparkling white. I want sparkling white shoes, but I've met me. Ketchup is going to ruin my shoes right away. But man, there's that drive, isn't there? You got cool shoes, Chris. Now I'm going to get real personal. Someone's going to poke somebody. Control of the thermostat in the house. Where's Carol Schellenberg? I know you're in here. She's not putting her hand up, but I see you. And I know she and Kevin, that's an ongoing battle. Carol came in here. This is one of my favorite stories about Carol, and I haven't even asked her permission. So Carol, can I tell this story? Good. It was, in the first days of me working here, 2 years ago, it was like 25 degrees out. I'm sitting in the office. She comes in, and she says, it is so cold in here, and she turned on the furnace. The one with the fire. And I'm looking at her like, we need to have a meeting. Because no way, because you can put on as many coats as you want, but no furnaces allowed. That argument, and you go buy a car, and if you're the sort of person that says, I don't want a car with all the fancy stuff, I don't want a car with 2 climate controls, that only means that everyone else in the car has quit complaining about your temperature preferences. And everyone else in the car really wants 2 climate zones. My wife's car, you press the button and the seat heats up. I like to turn it on when she doesn't know I've done it in July. She wishes I would stop. I'm not nearly mature enough to stop. Not even close. It's funny every time. I don't like it when she does it to me. She doesn't understand. I get hot. And I don't like it. So if you could please speak to her about that, that would be great. How about who gets to pick what is the shortest series of directions between here and there? Oh, you might be driving, but I'm opinionated. Why did you turn there? We could have gone up here and turned over there. That's what you should have done. This is the wrong way. It will work, but this is the wrong way. Have I just upset a whole bunch of marriages here? I wonder if I have. That was not my intention today. I apologize. Since the day we were born, we have had a deep desire to dominate. We like to think we don't until the temperature's wrong. I'm totally fine with the temperature so long as Carol doesn't touch it. We've had this desire. We want our way. We want our voice to be heard. We want our opinion to be heard and to be listened to carefully and considered until you agree with me. We've wanted that. We still want that. There is this desire to dominate. Now we just started into the book of Philippians, and the book is actually a letter, and it is to a church in Philippi, and it's written by Paul to a group of people who he knows very well. He knows them by name. He knows what kind of ice cream is in their freezer. That level of close. And he's talking to them. It's very familiar language. And the church in Philippi is an interesting church because it's so brand new, it's still got that new church smell on them. They don't have any traditions at all. They never had Christmas and the Advent candle looks like this and it sure doesn't look like it. None of that. And the church is full of the widest variety of people. There are people in this church who are in leadership of the church who they own businesses and their clientele is royalty. All the way down to people who were slaves and perhaps still are. And everyone in between. There's every color of collar that you've heard of is in that church, all the way from purple to no collar is in that church. And Philippi is this incredibly wealthy city. It's so wealthy it has its own gold mines. And this is, you go there to be rich or you go there to be poor, but it all happens in Philippi. And Paul is talking to the people in Philippi, and at the beginning, he's been talking about joy. And Paul is in prison. In this particular story, Paul is under house arrest, which means he's going to be released from this. This isn't prison under the ground where you probably go to die, although that has happened, and that was an amazing story. We talked about that last week. If you weren't here last week, I really encourage you to go watch them. They're on YouTube, and stick with us through this story. But this time, Paul is in house arrest. He will be able to leave the house eventually, but he's not able to leave the house right now. He is able to interact with people, and that's how this letter gets out. And he's asking for people, he's asking for this letter to be sent, and so that he can hear back from the church from Philippi, and this will bring him joy, and this is a wonderful thing. So we have a guy in prison who's joyful. That's weird, but there he is. And that's why the book of Philippians is often called the book of joy. And so Paul is talking to these people. We're going to pick this up in verse 3. I'm going to the NLT. It's what Kim read this morning. You can follow along on the screen. And it says this: don't be selfish. Don't try to impress others. Be humble, thinking of others as better than yourself. Don't look out only for your own interest, but take an interest in others too. There's something subtly in this, I want you to get this. What it does not say is, don't look out for your own interest. It says, don't look out for only your own interest. Instead, also look out for the interest of others. This is a key thing, because sometimes we talk about the joy of the Lord, and what it sounds like is you can't have any opinions about anything. You cannot, for instance, if you're politically minded, you cannot run for politics. If you're business minded, you cannot say, hey, how can we run a business the best way we can run a business? Perhaps if you're a pastor at a church, you're not supposed to say, hey, how can we be strategic in growing the church and moving to the next place in the church's life? How can we do that? It's sort of translated like you're not supposed to do that. Well, that's not what it says. It says, don't look out only for your own interest, but also for the interest of others. You must have the same attitude that Christ Jesus had. So Jesus was not created. Jesus was always there. You need to go no farther than the book of Genesis, the beginning of the book of Genesis, before you find that out. The story of Jesus, we often think, begins with a virgin becoming pregnant and the Christmas story. And we often think it ends with the death and resurrection of Jesus. But if you actually read through the scriptures, you will find out Jesus was always there, as God was always there, before there ever was time. He is already there after there is time. He doesn't bow to time. We hear the story of Jesus, but before the story of Christmas, we hear all kinds of people waiting for the coming Messiah. We added a name to that, Jesus, or they would have said something closer to Jesus. But we were always waiting. He's outside of time. He's outside of all of the things that we are inside of. Gravity, air, the need to sleep, sickness, health. He is outside of all of those things because he is God. Except for this one spot where he is born of a Virgin Mary. He is born to earth. And he is entirely human, head to toe, everything. He clipped his toenails. What would you do if you had a bag of Jesus' toenails? Do you feel like you could throw them out? They're just toenails. But they're God. God's toenails. But Jesus was fully human. There's a theological word, it's this old churchy word called the incarnation. And the incarnation is Jesus leaving behind all of the God stuff and taking on the human stuff, all of it, to the point where he could be killed. I wonder if he was ever, I suspect he was sitting there one time with his disciples and they looked at him and they said, "Did you brush your teeth? Your breath smells bad. What would you do if you had a Ziploc baggie of Jesus' breath? Could you get rid of it? It smells bad. But it's God. Except it's human. It's entirely human. This is a radical concept. And Jesus teaches us to be like him. And in verse 5 we read, you must have the same attitude that Jesus had. Though he was God, always was, always will be. He did not think of equality with God as something to cling to. I kind of do. I kind of think if I had the ability to walk under the water and not die because I can't breathe, That would be cool. If I had the ability to call all of the angels to come and do my bidding, come and go fix that problem. There are weeds in my backyard, I want them gone. And they would respond, that's pretty great. To just change the world, to fit how I want it. There is a body of water here, I want no body of water, and it splits and we walk through on dry land. I want that. I want to dominate. I want in January when it's minus 40 and it's dark and I'm tired of minus 40. I've done my Canadian thing where I'm proud that I didn't die in the cold. Even though it's where I live, I literally have no choice to go anywhere else, so I'll just claim it as my own abilities. Now it's January. I don't want minus 40 anymore. Gone. Oh, I'd click my fingers. You better believe I'd click my fingers. Carol would love it. Warm, huh? How warm do you want it? 30. There's no, absolutely not. 25. It's 25. Oh, I'd do it. All of the music would be the music I like. All of it. It would be so simple. We just have to go back to good music. What car would you drive? I'll tell you. I'll tell you. I want to dominate. I want my marriage perfect. I want my children perfect. I want their spouses perfect. No troubles. I want the Rough Riders to win. Now, don't bail on me here. Who's going to cheer for the Bombers? That was the quietest. We got at least one woo over there. You're going to cheer for the Bombers. No kidding. Right on. Good for you. You're going to lose, but check this out. Watch. Riders. That's how it's worked for the last 2 years. Anyway, we're moving on. I want to dominate. Maybe you do. I want my adult children to. I want my political world to. I want the bank to. I want the lottery to. You must have the same attitude that Jesus Christ had. Though he was God, he did not think of equality with God as something to be clung to. Instead, he gave up his divine privileges, and he took the humble position of a slave. There's a bit of a word game going on here, and when slave was written then, they mean something different than what we mean now. Words change. So let me use a different word. He took the position of a servant. You see, God didn't see his godness as permission to not. Instead, he saw his godness as permission to serve. Do you remember the story of when Jesus washes the disciples' feet? Do you remember that story? And we think to ourselves, and I think to myself, that's gross. Feet are gross. They smell bad, they're sweaty, there's dirt on them, we don't like them. If you wear sandals without socks the way you should, they're nasty. And we sort of camp on that. I want us to pull back from that story a little bit and go, how about this story isn't about the grossness of feet, but it's rather who was doing the washing? God was washing the feet of the learners, his disciples, his students? I don't think so. Except, yeah, he was. Or maybe you remember the story of when Jesus comes and he says, not to Peter, but Jesus comes and he says to John the Baptist, I want to be baptized by you. Let me try this story one more time. He goes to John the Baptist and he says, baptize me. And John the Baptist says, no, you baptize me. You're God, I am not God. I'm not baptizing you. Do you know who you are? My wife and I have season tickets to the Globe Theater. We like that. We like that a lot. We go to plays as often as possible. The artistry of it speaks to me. And we have this fun game that it's totally judgmental. I already know that. I'm sorry in advance, but we're also going to do it again next time we go. We sit there and we look around and say, who's the most important person in the room? And we look around, and it's literally a circle. If you haven't been to the Globe Theater, it's a staging around. So you sit up, and you can see everybody. And we look around, and the last time we were really sure we had figured out who it was this woman, and she had this short haircut. So she was the most important woman. We knew it. That's what that haircut meant. And we just sort of decided, and we both agreed on it, and we were sitting there going, that's the most important person in here. We don't know what she does. We don't know where for all I know, she doesn't live in Regina. I've never met her. But we were just sure of it. Who's the most important person in the room when Jesus is there? Well, it's Jesus. And he says, you need to baptize me. No. You're the most important person in the room, in the world, in time. You baptize me. I'm here to wash your feet. No, God, I will wash your feet. And it's a hilarious story because, no, I'm going to wash your feet. And then Peter says, don't just wash my feet, wash all of me. I'm sinful, I'm a mess, fix me. And Jesus says to him, and I could preach a whole sermon on this, but I'm not going to. Jesus says to him, you need a touch up, not a full tear down. You need your feet cleaned. You don't need to be destroyed. I made you, you're good. You need a touch up. Oh, and so often we go, I'm rotten, I'm rotten, I'm rotten. Where did you get that from? I thought you were a child of God. He took on the humble position of a slave. He was born as a human being. When he appeared in human form, he humbled himself in obedience to God, and he died a criminal's death on the cross. Think of the story of when he went up onto the Mount of Olives, and he was in so much distress, he was sweating, and the sweat was dripping off him like drops of blood, and he prays to God, and he says, God, if there's any other way, I don't want to do this. I don't want to submit myself to torture because it hurts. Because I'm human. Not God. I don't get a get out of jail free card. It hurts. It's intended to hurt. It's intended to hurt the worst. And we've just gone through this with Easter where we talked about this. But if it is your will, God, then I will do it. All he had to do was say, I'm out. Sorry, not me. He's God. He can do that. But he didn't think that was worth holding on to. Instead, he let go of that, and he became a servant for us. And this is what Paul is teaching. As Paul is in prison again, as Paul is in prison after being beaten by the other guys before he went to prison, as Paul is not able to leave, not free, and I'm sure the place isn't air conditioned, and he is sitting there and he's saying, tell me of the good news that's going out, that Jesus came and he died for us. He didn't think that the God stuff was something to cling on to. Instead, he let go of that to come serve us. It is not the what, it is the who. And it should astound us. Therefore, God elevated him, Jesus, to the highest honor and gave him the name above all names, that at the name of Jesus, every knee should bow, in heaven and on earth and under the earth. Do you remember the story of the slave girl turning and saying, she is possessed by a demon, she can tell the future, and she says, this is the one true God, and he is coming to change the world. Every tongue confess that Jesus Christ is who? Lord. Lord. To the glory of the Father. It does happen to me. My old ways, they come back to me. And I'm going to tell you a story as the worship team comes up. I was sitting in my office, not this office, a different church, a different time. There's a phone call, and the phone call says, it was someone I had not spoken to before. I didn't know them. And they said, we live in town. We have been told we must move out of our home, and we have rented another home. But I don't have a truck, and my wife is not well. She can't lift and carry, and I need help. And they said, call the church, and there might be help. And there was just something in his voice that okay. So I called my friend. His name is Ted. Ted is the guy that if I call Ted, no matter what I ask, his answer is going to be yes, which means I cannot abuse that. I have to be very careful with how often I called Ted. But Ted had a truck. I have a truck, so I called Ted, and I said, we need to go. We need to go right now. And we drove over to this house, and there they were. And really quickly, something occurred to both Ted and I, and it was this. When they called us, they did not call us because they wanted our trucks. They called us because they wanted us to move them. And they stood back as we moved every last thing out of there, every pencil, everything. And I started to feel a little put upon. What you were selling me isn't what I was buying. Started to feel a little bad about myself, about the situation. Don't they know who I am? And I will never forget standing in the driveway, sweating. People only move when it's plus 1,000. Carol thought it was wonderful, but I was too hot. And God said to me very gently, lovingly, he said to me, why not you? Because, God, it's hot. It's heavy. I don't own it anyway. I don't know these people. They're not paying me. It's going to cost me. This is taking my time that I'm supposed to be doing something else. Don't you know I work at a church, God? Why not you? And Ted and I moved them. Now, Ted and I have talked about that since, and we have come up with an agreement that we don't move anyone if they don't ask us to move them and we agree to. We don't want to get caught in that situation again. It wasn't fair. But why not me? Who am I? Why not you? There was another time it got me. I had a job in a native reserve. My job description literally was written on a piece of paper. It said this: you are to be salt and light. That was the entirety of the job description. And I would love to tell you stories about what happened there. It was an amazing thing. And one day I walked in after a snowstorm, and they handed me keys to the tractor. And they said, the road to the dump is full of snow. You need to plow it out. Isn't there something with some more gravitas that I could be doing? Isn't there someone standing there just saying, why won't someone come and preach a sermon? That's what you all did this morning, isn't it? You got up this morning and you said, gee, I sure hope someone preaches a sermon. There's a couple of honest people here. Everyone else is like, yes, that's what I thought. No, you didn't. I took a picture of it. I wanted to find it. I couldn't find it. It looks like me sitting in a tractor pushing snow to the dump. No one ever thinks of the person that clears snow to the dump. And I remember when God put this word in my brain, and it nourished me the whole time I was there, and it was this word: pastoring. Jesus came to serve. Why not you? Why not serve? Too busy. Too important. How about this one? Not nearly important enough. How about this one? You did serve, and it didn't go well. Nobody ever said thank you, and you're not going to do that again. Jesus looked at all of that. He said, this is not worth holding on to. I want to invite you into the car. It's an Accord. I'm going to say this quickly, and then I'm going to leave. This means you should be able to have a conversation, even a spirited conversation, who is of a different political ideology than you. And when you are done your political conversation, you walk with them to the table. And you take the elements, the piece of bread that represents the body of Jesus given for us. And then you take the cup of juice that represents his blood willingly poured out for us. And you look at the person that you are ideologically opposed to and you say, let's worship together. Joy. Jesus. Not politics, not football, not temperature, not likes. Jesus, the good news. Let's partake together.
So today with Peter's sermon, I want you to ask yourself the question of who am I called to emulate? You know, for me personally, when I was in high school, I remember I wanted to be popular so bad. And that got me into a lot of trouble because I wanted to be known. I wanted people to like me more. And I would try to be like everybody else. Even when it came to fame, I wanted to be famous. I wanted to look like someone famous. And I used to think I looked like Leonardo DiCaprio. Instead, I look like Mr. Clean now. That's the fame I got. But the reality is we are called to emulate Jesus. We are called to be like Jesus. You know, from that verse, just some words that stuck out to me was just, we are called to have the nature of a servant. We are called to humility. We are called to obedience. We need to let go of this need and this desire to dominate, to rule, to dictate, to control, and instead be like Jesus, who took on the very nature of a servant, humbled himself, becoming obedient even to death. And so now, we don't just try to be like somebody that was a servant, but we get to also be like someone who is a king. Our King Jesus is who we emulate. So this week, I hope you can go home and emulate Jesus in everything that you do. Amen? Amen. Thanks for joining us today. If you need prayer for anything, come up to the front. We would love to pray with you and be here for you. Thanks.